I'm going to show you how to make two different types of motion guides. A motion guide is a guide or a path that will allow an object to follow the path. You can make that with a motion tween or with a classic tween. So we're going to make both of them. So I have an image here, which is, I drew this in Animate, and it's a little bee that, if you look at the library, I've made the bee into a movie clip symbol. You have to use a symbol in both classic and motion tweens. You can't use a shape. It has to be a symbol. So we'll start with the motion tween to make the motion guide or motion path. I have a layer open with my bee in it. I'm going to double click on the name and call it bee. Select your first frame in the bee layer, and I want to create a motion tween. You can do that by inserting Create Motion Tween, or you can right click on the frame and Create Motion Tween. I have this set up for 24 frames a second, so it automatically goes from frame 1 to 24. The next thing I want to do is I want to make a new layer for my path. So I'm going to click on the plus, double click on layer 2 to change the name to path. This automatically length goes for 24 frames, which matches my bee layer animation so far. In this frame, in this path layer, I want to draw what I want to be a path for the little bee. So select frame 1, go to your pencil tool, use the pencil tool, don't use a fill, just a stroke. I use black just because it's easier to see. Your path will not show up in your animation, so don't worry what color you use. So start to draw right at the body of your image and make smooth loops out. So I started here right at the bee and I went all the way outside of the stage. I have the path selected. That's where I drew that path. Go up to your selection tool and double click. If you select just once, you're only going to get a segment of this path. Double click on it and go up to Edit Copy, and then go down to your bee layer and go back to Edit, Paste, and Center. So you'll see now these little dots. It automatically comes in here. Each dot is a frame. Each of these little green dots is a frame. So it has already set this up as my path in my motion tween. So I have a motion path or guide here already in this layer. Go back to your path layer and we're going to delete. I'm going to turn this off for the bee so I don't delete the wrong one. Select your path layer. This is still selected. Make sure you're on the path layer. Just deselect just in case. Double click and delete it. Go back to your bee layer, turn it back on, turn off the lock, and scrub through so you can see what your animation is. Okay, he's following the path, he's slides right off. But the problem is he's kind of oriented north, and we might want him to fly around as if his little head is following the path. So if I select anywhere in my motion tween, I'm going to go back over to Properties, go to the tab that says Frame, Tweening, and click Orient to Path, which now you'll see how this turns and orients to the path. So when and you'll see here how it sets up keyframes automatically for each of these little stops. So when you drag through, he's oriented toward that. What if, see how he's a little bit off here? His torso is centered correctly, but his little head is kind of dipping down. What you can do is you can change where that orientation, where the path, the center for that orientation is. It'll always be in the center of the object. So go to your transform tool, and let's see if we can transform. Let's see. Let me go back here, and I'm going to just double click on my B. Go into the B here, and now let's see if I can transform. Go to the transform. I double clicked on the B because I couldn't grab that center point of the B. Now I am just editing the B without editing the path. And you see that little center circle there? That's his center point. I'm going to change it to his head. Click back on scene 1. And now let's see if we can get him to, okay, now he's moving around a little better. There. Now he's moving around. It orients more with his, there, good, okay. So that's one. That's using a motion tween. Let's revert, and then I'm going to do a classic tween for the same type of motion path. So File, and I'm going to revert back. And let me set this up so I've got this at the top. And I'm going to move this over a little bit this way. There we go. Okay. This time we're going to do a classic tween instead of a motion tween. Always start on one side so that you have your animation going from one side to the other. You can make a circular path like this too if you want. That's your choice. First thing I'm going to do is right click on, let's change this name to B so we have the same. We have a B layer. I'm going to right click, and remember you could do insert and create classic tween. Right click, create classic tween. I have the tween going now again from frame 1 to 24. And I want to make a new layer for my path. So click plus in your timeline to make a new layer. Here's my new layer. Double click on the name and change that to path. This automatically will go to frame 24 also. I want to extend this. If you want a little bit more time for your animation, you can do that. I'm going to extend my time to frame 70. Just click and drag down so that you have the frame 70 in both layers selected. Then right click with your mouse and go up to Insert Frame. And you'll see that it takes the classic tween and drags it all the way out to frame 70 and extends the path also out. So select your first frame in the path layer. Now we're going to draw another path, another path for this bee to follow with the pencil tool. Remember, just the black stroke. And let's have him loop around, and then maybe loop like this. So it's a little different path than we did for the motion tween. Click with your selection tool. This time, the way to handle the classic tween is different than the motion tween. So with your selection tool, you have to double click on the path name here in the layer, because we're changing this layer for the classic tween. Now, you'll see the layer properties. Go down and click guide. This is going to be changed from just a regular layer. Watch that icon will change, and then click OK. See how that changes now? Looks more like a T-square. It's going to change again. Okay. And all of that is selected. Okay. So now select frame 1 in your B and make sure that your B, now before, let's just change this. Remember our little having to change our where we oriented from? That center point I want to change. So go to your transform tool and see that circle? Grab that little circle and drag it up to the B's head. That way it's going to be led around here by his head. Go back to your selection tool, grab the B, and drag the B up there to the first starting point. And you do this in frame 1. That's going to be where I want frame 1. Select frame 70. And with a classic tween, I have to add my own keyframes. So I'm selecting this, and I want to change the B from here to here. So I have to have a keyframe. So right-click and insert a keyframe, and grab the B and drag it over to this point. So now we have it in 2 different areas. Now it still is not going to quite work correctly. And select any layer here, any frame, and I want to orient to the path. See what it's doing? It is just dragging this way. It's not yet cemented. It's not being guided yet by this path. And one of the things I want to do is make sure in tweening that it does orient to the path when I get it to orient to the path. With classic, it's different. It's not the same as the motion tween. Go to your B layer. Grab the B layer and move it a little bit right and up. See that black line with a circle? That is going to attach my B layer to the path, and watch the icon in the path layer. Let go. See that changes? Now it is a motion path, and it has the B layer attached to it. So now when you scrub through, look at the little B is following, and his little head is moving around with that guide. And if he's traveling a little north, we might want him more at the center point. So when we do this, you have to determine before how you want to have him flying. But that gives you both ways of making a motion path that allows the bee to, let me take this back to 1, to follow. So here it goes. And it extends it. It shows you also how, if you want to have that take a little bit longer for the guide, for the path, you can extend it out. As far as your frames, we extended from 24 to 70. So that shows you 2 different ways using a motion tween and a classic tween to make a motion path to follow, to have an image follow a path that you draw.